Quick, how many Vanguard ETFs are there? Are there 10? Are there 15? Are there 20? There's 88. Sorry I ruined it. But 88, that's a lot. And so here's the problem. Imagine you're buying a Honda. You know it's a good car. Maybe you even have one. You want another one. But there's not 88 options. There's an Accord, Civic, HRV, CRV, Pilot, Passport, Odyssey, and a Prologue. That's 8 categories that you can choose from. But usually when you're choosing a car, you have an idea about what you want. So for example, you probably know if you want a sedan or an SUV. And if you want a sedan, well, there's an Accord Hybrid, or there's a Civic, or a Civic Si. That's it. So when it comes to Vanguard, you likely have no idea about what products there are available to you, and you don't understand the categories. There's no one place to go that has everything that you can compare easily, that's easy for you to process, until now. Because I made something. We're going to go over in this video a cheat sheet I created that will show you every single Vanguard ETF categorized so that you can get a in-depth understanding about the ETFs that are offered by Vanguard. Almost all 88 of them. So here she is. Isn't she beautiful? We have 10 different stock categories, 3 different bond categories, and every single one of those ETFs fit in here somewhere. Now what I did was I said the ETF has to have at least a 5-year rate of return, which basically means that only ETFs that are at least 5 years old are going to fall into this, because I think for us to have a good comparison about ETFs, we want them to be at least 5 years old. That's why I did that. Of those stock categories, we have large cap, mid cap, and small cap stocks. Somewhat separate from that category are sectors, so all the different sectors of the stock market. So when it came to large cap, what I did was I said, okay, there's large cap growth, there's large cap value, and then there's large cap blend, which is a blend of both growth and value stocks in one ETF. Let's take a look at large cap growth. There's 12 different ETFs that fall into large cap growth. I provide the ticker, the name, the cost, the yield, the 5-year return, the 10-year return, and the Morningstar risk rating. Now I rank these by the 5-year rate of return. So let's start with the bottom. So the lowest rate of return in this category is VIGI. It's a Vanguard International Dividend Appreciation ETF. Its 5-year return is 8.1% annually. Its cost is 0.15%. The yield, or the dividends that are paid within the stocks inside the ETF, 1.8%. It has a 5-year return of 8.1%, and I don't have a 10-year return on this one because it's not 10 years old. Now, interestingly, the risk on this is only 1 out of 5. So while the return wasn't quite as high as some of the other ones in this category, there was still a low risk rating, so that's good. And actually, it has the highest dividend, or the highest yield, out of all the ETFs in this category at 1.8%. Okay, now let's go up to the top and the best performing one in the past 5 years. That was MGK, the Vanguard Mega Cap Growth ETF. It has an expense ratio of 0.07%, a yield of 0.4%, 5-year annual rate of return of 19.1%, and a 10-year return of 16.1%, coming in at a 4 out of 5 risk rating. By all means, those are really great rates of return. I would love to have those. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but you can see them all right now. Pause this video. I'm giving you this for free to download at the end, so I'll show you how to get to it, so you can always look through this whole thing if you want to. But moving on. Moving on to large cap blend. I'm going to go over the best performing one out of these categories for the 5-year return, but I'm going to flash them all so you can pause the screen and take a look at them if you want. We have VIG here as number 1, the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation ETF. It has an expense ratio of 0.06%. It's got a yield of 1.8%, a 5-year return of 12.1%, a 10-year return of 11.9%, and get this, it has a 1 out of 5 Morningstar risk rating. Super low. So that is very interesting to me. Best performing in this category and a very low risk rating. Moving on, large cap value. VOOV is the top performing in this category. This is the Vanguard S&P 500 Value ETF. Cost is 0.10%. The yield is 1.8%. It's got a 5-year return of 12.4%, a 10-year return of 10.4%, and a risk rating of 3 out of 5. These are all the other ETFs in the category. Let's go to the mid cap category. We have mid-cap growth. We only have 2 here. VFMO was the best performing 5-year return. That's a Vanguard US Momentum Factor ETF. It's got a cost of 0.13%. The yield is 0.6%. The 5-year return here is 14.3%. There's no 10-year return. It's not old enough. The risk is a 3 of 5. The mid-cap blend, we have VFQY. This is the Vanguard US Quality Factor ETF. A cost of 0.13%, a yield of 1.3%, 5-year return of 13.3%, no 10-year return. It's not old enough. A risk of 2 of 5. Take a look at the other ETFs in this category. Moving on to mid-cap value. We have VFVA. This is the Vanguard US Value Factor ETF. Cost of 0.13%, a yield of 2.2%, a 5-year return of 13.6% annually, no 10-year return, and a risk factor of 4 of 5. These are the other ETFs in this category. Let's move on to small cap ETFs. Here we have small cap growth. Here we have IVOG, the Vanguard Mid Cap 400 Growth ETF. It's got a cost of 0.15%. Yield is 1%. The 5-year return is 11% annually. The 10-year return is 10.5% annually, and the risk is a 3 of 5. Moving on, we have a small cap blend ETF category. The leader here is IVOO. This is the Vanguard S&P Mid Cap 400 ETF. It has an expense ratio of 0.10%. A yield of 1.2%, a 5-year return of 11.2%, a 10-year return of 10.1%, and a risk of 4 of 5. These are the other ETFs in the category. Next, we have small cap value ETFs. VBR is a leader in this category. The Vanguard Small Cap Value ETF is the name, has an expense ratio of 0.07%, a yield of 2%, a 5-year average annual rate of return of 10.8%, an average 10-year annual rate of return of 9.3%, and a risk of 3 of 5. These are the other ones in the category. Let's take a look now at sectors. Vanguard has every single sector in the stock market available to you inside an ETF form. People usually invest in these ETFs because they think maybe one sector is going to do better than the other, or maybe their portfolio doesn't have enough of a certain sector in it. They want additional exposure to that sector. There's a lot of different reasons, but the best performing sector here, it should really come to you as no surprise. It's VGT. It's the Vanguard Information Technology Sector ETF. Has an expense ratio of 0.10%. It has a yield of 0.65%. The 5-year annual rate of return is 22.1%. The 10-year return is 20.6%. And it has a risk of 3 of 5. It's been a very, very, very good ETF over the past 10 years. These are all the other sector ETFs. You can take a look at them. Let's move on. Here we have the bond ETFs. There are 3 different categories. I separated them by credit quality. You have high credit quality, medium credit quality, and low credit quality. Let's start with the higher credit quality bonds. There are 3 available, and the best performing of this is VTIP. This is the Vanguard Short-Term Inflation Protected Securities. So the cost is 0.04%. The yield is 3%. 5-year return is only 3.3%. The 10-year return is only 2.1%, but it's got a risk of 1 of 5. Not very risky, not a huge return. These are the other performances in this category. Next, we have the medium credit quality, BSV. This is the Vanguard Short-Term Bond ETF. It has an expense ratio 0.04%, a yield of 2.97%. This has a 5-year return of 1.3% and a 10-year return of 1.5%. As a risk rating of 3 of 5. For the low credit quality bonds, the best performing in the 5-year is VCSH. This is the Vanguard Short-Term Corporate Bond ETF. So this invests in corporate bonds, not government bonds. The cost is 0.04%. It has a yield of 3.5%. The 5-year return is 1.9%. The 10-year return is 2.2%, and it has a risk rating of 4 of 5. So there we go. Every single Vanguard ETF that has at least a 5-year return available. This is their catalog of products that you can use to invest your hard-earned money into these ETFs. I said I'd show you how to get to this cheat sheet for free. And to do so, you're going to go down in the description. There's going to be a link to my website. It's free. Literally just go download it. You can get it in a PDF. You can get it in a JPEG. Did you like this video? Well, I made something more artistic about this journey to make this thing. I'd love for you to take a look at it, check it out. A lot of work into it, so support the channel, take a look. Hopefully you like it. You can click on it right here. Let me know your favorite ETF on this list. See you next time.